Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're exploring a really powerful and, frankly, counterintuitive idea for understanding the modern world.
Right.
It's this thought that maybe the great tragedy of our times is that the very people and systems trying to help us are often the ones hurting us the most.
Exactly. It's because we're obsessed with comfort, with stability. We build these huge systems to try and eliminate every little shock.
But that's the trap.
That is the trap. The source material argues that this very effort to smooth everything out is what makes the whole system incredibly fragile. It makes it vulnerable to those massive, unpredictable events, the black swans.
So our mission for this deep dive is pretty clear. We're going beyond just, pointing at what breaks. We want to understand the three ways of being when you're faced with disorder.
The triad. Things are either fragile, robust, or anti-fragile.
And we need to get to the bottom of the difference between being harmed by chaos, just resisting it, or, and this is the key, actually gaining from it.
To put it really simply for you, fragile things, like a wine glass, they just break under volatility. Robust things, maybe like a steel bar, they can withstand the shocks. They don't change.
Oh, okay.
But anti-fragile things, think about your immune system or a muscle after a tough workout, they need stress. They improve and get stronger from disorder and from error.
So our goal here is to figure out how to structure our lives so we're not the turkey at Thanksgiving.
Right. How to be non-turkeys and actually gain every time the world proves our predictions are wrong.
Okay, let's start there. To really get this, we have to nail down what fragility is at its core. It's not just about being weak.
No, not at all. The sources define it with a really simple rule. Unfavorable asymmetry.
Unfavorable asymmetry.
It just means you have more to lose than you have to gain from random events, from volatility. And the reason fragile things break so catastrophically is because the relationship between a stressor and the harm it causes isn't a straight line. It's nonlinear.
Wait, if it's not a straight line, how much worse is it?
Well, let's use the old analogy of the large stone versus the 1,000 pebbles.
Okay.
Imagine a king wants to punish his son. He swears he'll crush him with this huge, heavy stone, but his advisor steps in and says, "Your Majesty, instead of that one big stone, why don't you cut it up into 1,000 tiny pebbles and just throw those at him?"
The total weight is the same.
The weight is identical. But the harm is, it's vastly reduced. The big stone is catastrophic. The pebbles are just an annoyance.
That's a powerful visual. So it's not about the total amount of stress, it's about the concentration. Doubling the size of the stone doesn't just double the injury.
No, it could triple it, quadruple it. The harm is on a curve, it accelerates. And that teaches us the central lesson. One single, large, infrequent event causes so much more damage to a fragile system than 1,000 small shocks added up.
The sources have a term for this, right?
They call it being short volatility. You dislike change, you hate randomness, and you're defined by that curved accelerating harm function.
This is where it gets so relevant to, our modern world. We can link this nonlinear harm directly to why our predictions fail so badly, especially when we try to manage everything.
Absolutely. Think about the contrast the sources give between two kinds of jobs.
The taxi driver.
Right, George the taxi driver. His income is all over the place every single day. Some days are great, some are terrible. But over a year or 5 years, it all kind of averages out.
It's noisy, but it's contained.
It's what the sources call municipal noise. In a safe environment, they label mediocristin. Small, constant variations.
Okay, and on the other side?
On the other side, you have, say, a banker. Their income is just a flat line for 5, 10 years. Calm, stable, predictable.
Until it's not.
Until there's a financial crisis, one single massive event, and their income line just falls off a cliff. That's extremistan. Volatility is suppressed, and then it just explodes.
So that flat line, that stability we all crave, is actually the danger sign.
It's the biggest red flag. When we try to smooth out George's bumpy ride, when we use top-down intervention to eliminate all those little ups and downs, we're actually pushing the system out of that safe, noisy world into one that's vulnerable to a catastrophic jump.
So silent risks are accumulating under the surface.
Exactly, and they build up until they become one giant system-breaking stone. So fragility is measurable right now, you can see it, but the risk of that rare future event, that is not computable.
Yeah.
And that leads directly to the ethics of all this.
Right, because the impossibility of predicting that single large stone, that creates the perfect cover for these top-down systems that transfer risk. They push it away from the person making the decision and onto well, everyone else.
And that's the tragedy of modernity we mentioned. It's built by people the sources call the fragilista.
A fragilista.
Yeah, it's someone who causes fragility because they think they understand what's going on. It's a kind of Soviet Harvard intellectual delusion. They operate from a university or a government office, and they transfer their prediction errors onto you.
And that transfer of risk is the core ethical problem. We have to talk about the skin in the game asymmetry.
Look, you can basically split people into two groups here. In one column, you have the no skin in the game crowd.
The bureaucrats, the bankers, the theorists.
Exactly. They get to keep all the upside from randomness and disorder, but they transfer the downside, the real harm, the losses, onto other people, usually the taxpayer.
The Robert Rubin example from the sources is just, it's perfect.
It's the textbook case. Earning hundreds of millions in bonuses while his bank took risks that the public eventually had to pay for. He got all of the potential reward with none of the personal risk.
The system was fragile for us, but it was robust, even beneficial for him.
And that's why it's unstable. Now contrast that with the other column, the people with soul in the game.
The heroes, the rebels,
Yeah.
the entrepreneur who puts their own house on the line.
Yes, they are the ones who willingly take the downside risk, either for the good of others or for a principle they believe in. True social stability comes from people bearing risk, not from gaming the system to avoid it.
And these fragilistas, they're often basing their decisions on this very flawed, top-down kind of knowledge. The sources call it naive rationalism.
Right, which leads to this great idea, the lecturing birds had a fly effect.
I like that.
The common illusion is that progress is linear, You have basic research, which leads to a theory, and then applied science, and then finally technology.
But history shows that's backwards.
It's completely backwards. Most technology, from the jet engine to ancient cathedrals, comes from what the sources call antifragile tinkering. It's trial and error, where the errors are small and contained, but they lead to huge, unexpected wins. The theory gets written after the fact to explain what worked.
We think the architects of the great cathedrals used complex geometry.
But they didn't. They used heuristics, rules of thumb, secret recipes passed down through generations of builders. The jet engine wasn't invented by a physicist in a lab. It was developed by engineers just tinkering, trying things.
And this gets to the green lumber fallacy.
The green lumber fallacy is about mistaking one type of knowledge for the necessary knowledge. A theorist might think a successful trader knows all the geopolitical reasons why lumber prices are moving.
But the real trader, the fat Tony character in the source, doesn't care about the reasons.
He doesn't care at all. He just cares about the payoff. Is this a sucker or non-sucker position? His knowledge is based on exposure and consequences, not on having a beautiful theory.
So knowing the consequence is more important than knowing the cause.
It's everything. Because your theory can be wrong, but the consequences of being wrong are very, very real. Having too much theoretical knowledge can actually make you more fragile if it gives you the confidence to meddle in things you don't understand.
Okay, so if the world is full of these nonlinear risks and, frankly, ethical failures in knowledge, what do we actually do? How do we stop being the turkey?
There are two main strategies, really. Two big ideas for living an anti-fragile life. The first is the barbell strategy.
Oh, Barb.
It's a blueprint for creating that beneficial asymmetry we talked about. You get massive upside potential while strictly, and I mean strictly, limiting your downside. And the key is to avoid the dangerous golden middle.
Why is the middle so bad? We're always told to diversify, to take on moderate risk.
Because that middle ground is an illusion built on miscomputed probabilities.
Yeah.
You think you understand the risk, so you put a lot of your resources there, and then a black swan hits and wipes you out. The middle makes you complacent.
So the barbell avoids that.
Completely. The classic finance example is beautiful. Put 90% of your money in something maximally safe. Boring cash, government bonds, things that can't blow up.
That's one side of the barbell.
That's one side. Then you take the remaining 10% and put it into maximally risky, highly speculative ventures, things with unlimited upside.
With that setup, your total loss is capped at 10%. You know your worst case scenario.
Exactly. Your downside is known and limited. It's your sacrificial pebble. But your upside is open to the universe. It's exposed to positive black swans. You've engineered optionality.
And this isn't just about money. It applies to careers, to life.
Oh, absolutely. Look at writers like Stendhal or Kafka. They had boring, low-risk civil servant jobs. That was their 90%. That anxiety-free sinecure gave them the stability to then spend their free time on their real, highly speculative, uncompromising art.
The boring job funds the radical pursuit.
Right. Now, the second strategy, which might be even more important, is via negativa.
Knowledge by subtraction.
Knowledge by subtraction. It's just the simple idea that we gain wisdom much more reliably by knowing what is wrong and what to remove than by trying to figure out what is definitively right and what to add.
Applied to health, this is huge. We're always looking for the next supplement, the new superfood.
But the sources argue that huge health improvements come from removing the bad stuff, getting rid of sugar, processed foods, chronic stress, maybe even the daily news.
It's about removing the irritants.
It is. It's avoiding iatrogenics. That's harm caused by the healer, by the intervention itself. We suffer from diseases of civilization because we've removed all the natural stressors our bodies evolved with.
You're talking about hormesis.
Hormesis, yes. The idea that systems benefit from small, controlled stressors. Things like fasting, intense but short exercise, even cold exposure. We're hurt by the deprivation of stressors. Comfort makes us fragile.
So when we're deciding what to subtract and what to keep, there's a good rule of thumb.
There is. It's the Lindy effect.
For anything non-perishable, an idea, a book, a technology, every extra day it has survived implies it will survive even longer.
The old is expected to stick around longer than the new. I mean, look around you. The chair you're sitting on, the wine you might drink, silverware, these things are thousands of years old. This is a great filter for all the new fads, what the sources call neomania.
The obsession with the new just because it's new?
Finally, we need to adopt the mindset of the rational flaneur.
Not the tourist.
Never the tourist. The tourist has a rigid schedule. They think they know exactly where they're going. The flaneur is an opportunistic wanderer. They make decisions at every step, they gather information, and they exploit options as they pop up.
The flaneur loves being wrong because it's new information.
They embrace error and revision, and that's why the wheeled suitcase is such a great example. So simple, so obvious, but it was missed for decades because smart people were looking for complicated solutions, not the simple tinkerer's fix.
So to wrap up our deep dive, the path to real stability isn't about avoiding risk. It's about structuring your life, your career, your health to be anti-fragile. The world really rewards those who find asymmetries, who limit their downside while opening themselves up to massive black swan scale upside.
We have to stop trying to suppress randomness. We need to start seeking out beneficial disorder. It's the fundamental truth. A glass is fragile, it's short volatility, it hates change. But living things are long volatility. We benefit from stress. To verify you're alive, check if you like variations.
An ethical life, a meaningful life, isn't one devoid of personal risk.
Not at all. Results without effort are meaningless.
We learned today that simple old heuristics and traditions often hold more wisdom than our modern naive rationalism. So here's a final thought for you. Consider that the ancient poet Homer always described the sea as wine dark, not blue. It's possible the ancients literally didn't have a common word for the color blue. What fundamental concept or asymmetry, vital to your life today, maybe about risk or knowledge or what it means to live well, might you be unable to grasp simply because our modern culture hasn't given you a word for it yet? Think about that until the next time.